In the southern Antilles, Carnival is the highlight of the year. The streets of Port of Spain, the capital of Trinidad and Tobago, are filled with masked people from all over the world. With imagination, humour, spirit and delight, the colourful crowd dance through the island's capital in celebration of the so-called fifth season. Carnival was introduced to the southern Antilles in the 18th century by French settlers. Although the French didn't colonise Trinidad, the tradition of Carnival remained on the island nevertheless. The various Carnival events are synonymous with French terms such as Dimanche Gras and Mardi Gras, even though the islands are English-speaking. Originally, only the upper class were allowed to take part in the festival. After slavery was abolished in 1834, the African population began to hold their own carnival celebrations. They added their own African flavour to the event, and it developed into a riotous affair, combining African tribal rituals and unconventional music with colourful costumes. From the Christmas holidays onwards, carnival costumes are designed and made in so-called mask camps. Brian Mac Farlane is one of the best-known carnival designers. Like many Trinidadians, he lives the entire year for carnival. The costumes made by his team have been available for order since September of the previous year. Unlike carnival in Rio, anyone can take part in the celebrations in Trinidad. Every year, the teams have a new theme which they design their costumes around. Brian Mac Farlane has chosen as his theme for 2010, Resurrection the Mask, or the revival of the mask. He wants to give new life to the old clothes which filled the streets of Port of Spain in the late 19th century.
What I'm trying to do out of this is to bring the mask back in its purest form, how it was in the early 1800s. And the only thing that I've changed is the actual colors. So where we would have had maybe blue devils, they're now gold and copper. Because my storyline is that the spirit world has sent it back for the streets of Port of Spain for 2010. And by doing that, resurrecting it, they have honored it and washed it in coppers and gold to give it glory. So the colors have changed, but it is there in its very purest form from the very beginnings of the mask.
The mask camps for children design costumes for the kiddies' carnival. The designers work from one carnival to the next on their themes.
From one carnival to the next, there's no rest. It's an ongoing process where we work right through the year. And maybe about August or September, we might begin making prototypes.
The shows for the kiddies' carnival take place a week before the main parade for the adults. The junior kings and junior queens from the different bands are presented to the adjudication panel in Queen's Park, Savannah. The costumes are judged and the best from each category are selected. On the weekend before Shrove Monday, the streets of Port of Spain belong to the children. The children dance through the streets towards Savannah Park, accompanied by soca music blaring from huge speakers carried on the back of trucks.
The kids range from age 3 up to age 16. On the odd occasion, we do have 17 and 18-year-olds in the band, but basically the kids stop playing mass at 16.
The final shows are held on Dimanche Gras, the day before Shrove Monday. The kings and queens of the various bands are presented on a large stage in Savannah Park.
Daily rituals. The water bearer carries sacred water.
Seven Nicholls is preparing to make her entrance as Dame Lorraine, the queen of Brian Mac Farlane's band. She's one of the stilkwalkers, known in Trinidad as Moko Jumbies. This tradition was introduced to the carnival in Trinidad from West Africa. The word Moko is derived from the name of a West African god, and Jumbi, or spirit, was added after the abolition of slavery.
The Moko Jumbi is a small tradition back in the days where you would learn how to walk on two pair of sticks. You know, it was that old tradition where they used to use it as in protecting a colony in the old time days. You know, the Moko Jumbi was a protector of a village.
Brian Mac Farlane's queen is Dame Lorraine. Her costume is a traditional fictional carnival character, representing a typical French aristocrat from the 18th and early 19th centuries. Brian Mac Farlane has chosen colours which match the gold, copper and bronze tones of the band.
The band Resurrection the Man, competing in the North Zone, the organization Macfarlane Carnival 2010. Resurrection the Man, Dame
A queen is a Dame Lorraine, and Dame Bu Bunta is her name, which means lady with big backside. And what happened in the early days of carnival, when the slaves on the plantations and so, and they would dress for the carnival, they would try to mimic their plantation owners. So they would stuff their behinds and stuff their bosom and walk around with parasols and fans and look like they're the elite, but really make a mockery of them. In Tree, it would have been worn by a male. Males would have dressed with this, with the big bosom, big bottoms, and they would have worn these wire masks, so you would really not know who is behind the mask. And that is what we represent here with our queen. And we've gone further where we've now put her on 7-foot stilts. So she's what we call a Moko Jumbi. A Moko Jumbi, Dame Lorraine, queen of the band.
Well, it's all about the technique and moving the costume in order to get the depiction that everyone wants out of it, to give you that glamour, that where everything moves on the costume.
Organization Macfarlane Carnival 2010.
While the Queen is being admired on stage, Gerard Weeks is preparing his presentation as the king of Brian Mac Farlane's band. He's dressed as a dragon, portraying Dragon Can Dance. The dragon is a traditional costume at the Trinidad Carnival. It has its roots in conceptions of good and evil, and is inspired by Jab Jab and the devil mask, which represent the black devil. The dragon is accompanied by little devils which restrain it.
Our king this year is Dragon Can Dance. And the reason I went with Dragon Can Dance is there's a very famous novel by one of our local writers, Earl Lovelace. And the book's title is Dragon Can't Dance. And I've turned that around, that Dragon Can Dance. It's carried by one man, one human man that carries the entire costume on his back. And it's connected to parts of his body that as he moves, the dragon itself interprets that and moves. So the mask takes on its own life. It's just stagnant and still behind me now, but when it's worn and the casters and wheels are moved away from it, it takes on its own life and it becomes a character of its own spirit.
Inspired curiosity, fascination, awe, and
On Dimanche Gras, music groups perform in front of a judging panel. During the steel band competition, Panorama, up to 100 musicians are on stage together. The steel pan has its origins in the slave period, when the slaves were banned from playing African drums. They began to drum on old oil barrels using sticks. At Panorama, the musicians have to develop a standard calypso into a 10-minute arrangement, with variations and changes in rhythm.
It is what we are. We are carnival-minded people, you know, and we have no time to bear malice and so on, because every year we look forward to the coming of Carnival. We drown all our sorrows on the street on Carnival Monday and Tuesday, and then we go home and we relax, and then we start thinking about next year Carnival. So Carnival is our thing, you know. We have been able to influence a lot of foreign countries with our form of carnival as opposed to what happens in Brazil, for instance. But our carnivals coincide because carnival is very much of a Christian thing, and it always falls on the 2 days before Ash Wednesday.
The competition revolves around calypso. This style of music dates back to the time when the first African slaves came to Trinidad. They began to sing while working on the plantations after speaking.
Calypso is like what you would know as the blues. So you tell your story, you tell the things that irk you, you tell the things that you love. It's social commentary and political commentary, and there is also party to it too.
Being chosen as the Calypso Monarch at the competition is the greatest honour that can be bestowed on a musician.
We call ourselves the land of Calypso, the land of Kaiso. True Calypso, come to Trinidad and Tobago.
All the best for the contestants. I want to say thank you. Enjoy the rest of your show. Enjoy the rest of the show. Love you.
The Juvet morning begins at 4 a.m. on Shrove Monday. The name comes from the French words jour ouvert, or break of dawn. Juvet morning is a huge street party during which people smear themselves with paint and dirt. The tradition dates back to the beginnings of the carnival in Trinidad. At that time, only the rich people were allowed to take part in the balls and celebrations, while the lower classes were given the night off. Because of the masks and paint, no one could make out the colour of their skin, and so they were able to celebrate anonymously in the darkness.
The Juvet is actually an extension of what's called the Camboulé. And the Camboulé was what the carnival became after emancipation, when the Africans were freed and they were able to participate fully in the festival. Prior to that, the French, the planters, they had their balls on their plantations. The Africans would be involved in terms of providing entertainment for them, but they themselves could not stage their own version of what their festival would look like. So after emancipation, when they were free, they took to the streets in something called the Camboulé, and it consisted of beating drums, lighted torches, and bois, sticks for fighting.
At the break of day, the participants in the carnival parade join their bands. On Shrove Monday, only part of the costume is worn. Many bands simply wear t-shirts and paint themselves in colours. The day is all about having fun. The Band of the Year competition isn't so important. The members of Brian Mac Farlane's band are dressed in Hessian sacks and painted in brown colours. The bands parade through the streets of Port of Spain, accompanied by trucks with loudspeakers playing soca music. The bands are judged at judging points along the way. The people are relaxed and in a good mood.
It is somewhat like the Olympic Games for me, because this is our national festival. That's basically 200 years plus. So it is a big event for me and for our country, and also somewhat for the world, because there's so many people that know about our carnival from all over the world that come to witness it.
The parade ends at Queen's Park, Savannah, where the bands make a final presentation in front of the adjudicators. Brian Mac Farlane's band arrives at Queen's Park, Savannah in the evening and presents its theme, Resurrection, the Mass.
This is Brian Mac Farlane's 2K10 presentation of the Resurrection.
The highlight of Carnival is the Mardi Gras parade on Shrove Tuesday. The bands gather at 7 a.m. at the Mars camps. The costumes are brought to the participants, who then help each other to get dressed. Brian Mac Farlane's band is comprised of 16 divisions with a total of 48 characters. His theme, Resurrection the Mass, tells the story of traditional costumes from the 18th century, which are forgotten, die and are buried in Buku Reef, a sandbank in Tobago. But Brian Mac Farlane brings them back to life. The costumes are washed in gold and copper as a sign of appreciation and honour. The masks are also decorated in gold, copper and bronze tones for the same reason.
Mask is an incredible thing. Once you put that on your face, you transform completely from who you are to what the mask is.
At the judging points, the band presents a showcase together with its king and queen. The aristocratic Dame Lorraine on stilts and the Dragon Can Dance accompany the characters dressed in traditional 18th century costumes. The bands parade through the streets of Port of Spain for the whole day. In Queen's Park, Savannah, they make their final presentation. The kings and queens of the bands appear before the adjudication panel one last time.
I always get a little nervous before the final. I don't actually get nervous until I reach to the Savannah, what we call the big yard, where the competition takes place. And I guess when you get there and you see all the competitors that are waiting for that final moment, to know who is going to be the reigning king of Carnival for that particular year, it is a little nerve-wracking. So yes, I do get nervous at the minute, but once we cross the stage and all is well, it's very joyous.
Brian Mac Farlane's band reaches the final judging point late in the evening. Resurrection the Mass reaches its climax.
There's this huge hand, which is very much like a Trojan, that's being pulled on wheels by these half man, half beast with huge horns. And this hand represents us as humans, what we have become. Very close and a fist of anger and war. We don't release our spirit or our soul for people to absorb, nor do we open it to absorb other spirits or other souls. We don't welcome, we're very cold and harsh. And in that presentation, through the drama of the devils and the horns and the fire, we tell that evil and dark spirit. But there's a point in time that that hand begins to open. And when it reveals the stigmata of Christ, the wound of Christ in his hand. So it's a very spiritual symbol. But it's also showing that we are part of that symbol that was left for us. We are part of that symbol. And if we can release our soul and our being, we can absorb, we can receive, and we can give off love and communication and understanding. So it is very symbolic of the resurrection of humanity, mankind.
Brian Mac Farlane's band is voted Band of the Year. The carnival ends with the presentation, and calm begins to return to the streets of Port of Spain. It's the beginning of a new year for the carnival designers. They have to create a theme for the next carnival, and then draw up designs and make the costumes. All this while counting the days until the climax of the coming year, the next Mardi Gras.